Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories, and I'm going to ramble on for number 16. Don't know why I said that. If it's not, you will know from the title of the episode. I won't. This was another good week. I like Panama City. But something creepy happened, and I want to talk about that up top and just get it out of the way so I can talk about all the other cool stuff. I was walking along, and I heard someone beeping and honking from the road, and I looked over. It was some old guy, and it was pouring rain for a couple days. And I was just walking in the rain because I'm weird and I like to walk in the rain. I don't really mind if it's raining while I walk around. Have my hat, my earphones are protected. I can just listen to a podcast and walk in some rain. Anyway, this guy stopped, and I thought he needed help because he looked old and frail, and he asked me if I needed a ride, and I was like, I'm going up right straight down this road. He's like, yeah, okay, come on in. And seeing him, I was like, something's wrong, but he's not dangerous. And let me say, in like Thailand, Vietnam, people give me rides, very common there. And I talk to people a lot. I am a pretty good judge of character. When I feel danger, I don't go near a situation. But when I feel a weird situation, I usually poke my head inside and I'm curious. And this guy was weird, but didn't feel dangerous. And I was like, yeah, sure. I also don't get into cars with strangers ever, and I don't recommend anybody does. But here I did that. So I got into the car, and I was like, this is so weird. Something's weird here. And when he looked at me, I was like, oh, he's a creep. And then he put out his hand in like a weird way to, ostensibly shake my hand, but he put it way too low, like right above my crotch, so that if you shook his hand normally, it would go down and he would touch my crotch. And I was like, oh, this is a creepy old man trying to have sex with young men. Well, younger than he was. He was like 60-something, I don't know. But as soon as he did that weird, too low, outstretched hand, I was like, oh, okay, I'm clocking what's going on here. And I took his hand and shook it up and raised it and then said, hey, what's your name? I will be getting out of this car very soon. I didn't say that. This was all like unspoken, but he could tell, like, as soon as I shook his hand, I think, that things weren't gonna go his perverted way. Creepy way. And his car was dirty, and it had, like, a seat cover folded over on the passenger seat that I sat down in with newspapers everywhere. And it didn't smell bad inside, but it was just an old hoarder's car. Nothing about the situation was comfortable. And again, don't ever get into cars with strangers. This is just a choice I make now and then to do things that might seem dangerous. So we drive forward half a block, and he stops at a red light, and then he asks me when the last time I had sex was, and I said something vague, but kind of answering, Panama has beautiful women, and I go on dates with women, just so he knew I was not interested in him at all. And then he nodded and was silent for 20 seconds, and then, so I can just drop you off up there. And I was like, yep, that sounds great to me. And he pulled over after a couple streets into this hotel drive area and said, I live right around here. Do you want to come in? And I was like, nope, bye. And I got out of that car and I continued on my day. But, it was so gross. And I'm a young, fairly physically fit man, so I don't have to deal with this very often. And it wouldn't have been so bad if they were just straight up more honest, but like the weird, curvy, creepy way he has to ask. And I feel like women must feel like this constantly, because I vicariously feel disgusted when guys talk to me about women in disrespectful or objectifying ways. And because they assume, like, oh, you think women are objects also, right? I do. Or that crazy lady I met who is gone, which is fantastic to report. She's not here. The one who told me she was racist, she must have assumed I was racist and just wanted to share her racism. A lot of guys who have not great, terrible views of women must assume that I at least approve of their views or won't directly contradict their views and say something rude or gross to me about a woman. And I feel uncomfortable, but I don't even have to deal with that on the other side. I'm not a woman. It must be so terrible to be a woman in so many societies, maybe all societies, because men are relentless and so often unaware of how blatantly they make their designs on women known. I feel like everybody is unaware in one way or another. Like, people don't really understand how their life works, and they don't examine core integral parts of their lives very often. And so they just live with certain habits until they die because they don't examine themselves. But thinking of this interplay, but that's why it was good that I had this disgusting encounter, because I have to remember that this crappy encounter I dealt with once is something most women deal with every day, multiple times a day. And I know it happens because guys will talk to me about verbally sexually assaulting women or do it in front of me because they're like, well, guys are okay with it. And it doesn't happen constantly. But the thing is, I might go days without noticing, but it's happening all around, all the time. So Pervy Creep Man was my reminder to respect different people. And on that note, we can move on, because speaking of different lifestyles, I heard about Dix the Musical, which is already a pretty funny name for the movie. And it's a musical about these two jerks. But the title cards are, this was bravely written by two gay men. And then the second title card is something like, gay men have never written anything before this movie. And it starts out really funny, and it just keeps getting funnier for like half the movie, and then it gets surreal and weird. But I still watched the whole movie and really liked it. I recommend Dix the Musical 2023. It's very far out of my bizarre tastes and understanding of gay culture or anything like that as a straight guy. But they're right about the two main straight characters, and the writers are playing the two main straight characters, even though the writers themselves are gay. And it's just a really funny look at corporate culture in America and how men act. And Megan Thee Stallion is in it, and Megan Mullally's in it. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Two Megans. Nick Offerman's there with his wife in one of the scenes, which is funny. I mean, it's not funny, it's just cool that they're both in the same scene together, I guess. Nathan Lane, it's full of famous people, but as soon as Nathan Lane, like when Megan Mullally is introduced and we get her song, there's one line at the end and you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Is that literal? And then Nathan Lane starts singing and the movie's like, yeah, it's literal and weird. And, and then the movie just goes crazy. It's not my favorite musical. I'm not going to watch it 20 times like I watched Cannibal the Musical 20 times, but it was fun to see. And if nothing else, it was constantly surprising. And there was else, actually. It was funny. It was extremely creative. And yeah, extremely surprising. I did not guess where I had no idea where they were going from 1 minute to the next. After like 10 minutes, I think for like maybe 10-15 minutes, I sort of got the story. And then after that, I was like, what the fuck is happening minute to minute? I'm just remembering some of the scenes. I recommend Dix the Musical from 2023. I also love that the writers are the stars of the movie. It's so much fun to watch them both. And it's really funny to see them both acting as straight men, but have obvious homosexual affectations. It's just like a man wearing a bear suit pretending to act like what he thinks bears act like. Is that a good analogy? I don't know. The movie's really funny. I would recommend watching it. I also love musicals, but I really haven't seen that many. I've seen Cannibal the Musical like 20 times, and then I've seen a few I like. Like, I love the ending musical scene in This Is the End, but I don't watch a lot of full musicals. Maybe that's what I'll start doing after I finish all these Resident Evils. I'll start looking for all the musicals people like and watch some of those, because I usually like them a lot. Did I mention that I found out cidras were ciders? And by found out, I mean looked at it for a second. I was drinking these bubbly apple wines, because they have all these cidras here in the supermarkets. And then I was like, man, this is good. This is just like cider. And it was already like the third one over a few weeks I had tried. And then I was like, oh, they're called cidra. That must mean cider. So I finally realized that cidras are ciders here from thinking about it for half a second, but having already drank like 3 of them and knowing they were a thing. So it's still the rainy season because it poured for the last 48 hours, and I went out walking in the rain, and it's awesome. It's so cool. Like, I love rainy seasons, and I like how clean cities are when it rains too. So everything's clean in this really nice, big, multicultural, sprawling city. And there's rain, so I'm having a great time, and everything's green. It's just a nice place. This is a nice city. Oh, Dick's the Musical. Okay, when I was watching Dick's the Musical, the landlord walked in on me because it was my last day, it was my checkout day for the first month, and I had already paid for the second month, but I don't always lock my door, and I didn't while I was watching this movie. But my studio is set up on the floor. I prefer sitting on the floor for my spine. I don't like most chairs, and I borrowed 2 chairs. I have this little studio set up so the laptop is on one of the chairs with its back to the door. So she walked in and just watched me watching a laptop in this tiny bedsheet studio that I made to dampen some of the sound echoes. Speaking of which, I totally forgot to set it up until just now, so it might be a little more echoey in the first 13 minutes of this episode. And she came in probably to get the keys because it was an Airbnb checkout day, and she just stopped and stared at me, and I just looked up at her, and she said, I thought you moved out. And I said, oh no, I already bought my second month. She's like, oh, okay, okay, bye, and closed the door. And I didn't even think of this actually until just now. Maybe she thought I was watching porn or something. But I had a bunch of food around me, so probably not. What I did think of, because I was watching Dick's the Musical at one of the crazier parts of an already very crazy movie, I was like, wow, if she had walked in and I was watching this part of the movie, what would she have thought I was watching? I don't want to spoil any part of the movie, and you should watch it. And then imagine to yourself if someone walked in on pretty much any scene after the first third of the movie. There are parts to walk in on in the first third of the movie, but they're not insane. But the last 2/3 of the movie mostly is insane. Most of it's insane. And I just like imagining what she would have thought if she had walked in and seen any of these scenes that I'm not spoiling. You go watch it. I've been working on more Star Wars parody stuff, like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, Soulo, like he's a ghost. The t-shirts are available under Kook Poems at TeePublic. And I am really like the new one I'm working on. It has to do with Leia, but I'm not going to talk about it until I finish it, because every time I talk about a project before it's finished, I stop working on the project. I don't know what that is, but I think it's like reifying that I know it's gonna be done or it can be done, and I get very bored with a project once I have finished it, or I lose interest in a project once I've finished it. I don't really worry about continually fiddling and making it perfect and perfecter. But it'll be up soon, and it's probably my favorite one so far. The first Leia one I've done too. Oh no, it's the second Leia one, because there's Leia Organa. She's an orc. I'm really glad to be doing something artistic again, though. Visually artistic. Penmanshiply artistic. I've just been working on a lot of audio stuff lately, and watching a bunch of TV shows, playing video games, and I realized I needed something else. Like, I was bored with all of those, and I hadn't made a t-shirt design in a while. So I started drawing this Leia one that I had the idea for in my head, and it's coming out just how I wanted it to. I'll probably be done soon, and then next week I can tell you about it. I was walking along Santa Costura, the Pacific coast of Panama City, and there's this long boardwalk kind of thing. It's a concrete walk, but there's this long coastline you can walk along. That's where those crab-eating raccoons, the mapaches, are. And I'm looking for crocodiles still haven't found any, but I'm still looking. And luckily, this time I did see something else. And at first I thought I saw a crocodile, but that was just a exposed tire tread in the low tide of a lake, I believe. I don't think it was a crocodile. But I did see something weird and windy and curvy and obviously under its own power. And it was maybe 30 meters away. And I was just watching this big white thing, like person-sized white curvy thing go around. And I was like, what the heck is that? Because it didn't look like the fin of a fish or even a shark, because it wasn't rigid. It was like waving, and it was bright white. And there's not a lot of bright white sea animals, because that's not super great camouflage, especially up in the, what's it called? That first 10 feet of sunlight water. You loving this scientific flailing? Anyway, it kept moving around and curving and twisting and moving. And I was like, that's definitely an animal. Is that a crocodile? Because that's the only animal I can think of. It was not, but it was a manta ray. And that was super cool. I took several videos of it before I realized what it was. And when it clicked, I was like, oh my gosh. And it was a huge, 4 or 5 foot wingspan manta ray. Diving and twirling around on the coastline. I don't know what it was doing, if it was trying to eat something or maybe escape a shark into the shallows or escape a crocodile into the shallows. But it stayed there for a long time, and I could see it just winding around in the shadows, going back and forth along the coastline. That's probably what it was. It was probably trying to evade a predator, because it was super close to, like a foot. It was a foot off the sand. It was right up there. So it must have felt safer in the shallows. And I watched it until it went out back into the sea. But it was right on the coast for a few minutes, and I just got to watch this dancing, twirling, big manta ray. It was super cool. And it was a new animal I hadn't seen, and I was happy to see him again. I saw the mapaches again. Someone leaves cat food out in this one spot of the wall along the Pacific coast, and the mapaches just, trundled over and started eating all the cat food. And the cat seemed fine with it too. They were eating next to the mapaches, and there was just a couple of species eating food together, which was cool to see. There is this kid. So you can feed the mapaches, the crab-eating raccoons here. They eat human food, and they are very tame. So you see people feeding them all the time here, and even kids. So there was this one little boy feeding a Cheeto or something to one of the raccoons on the wall. And the raccoon walked over and sniffed it and was kind of slow picking it up. And the kid just snatched the Cheeto back and shoved it in his mouth. And his grandma saw him, and she slapped his hand and tried to get it out of his mouth, but he was already chomping down on it. The raccoon didn't even care. He was very chill. I was kind of worried that since he took food away from the raccoon, it would attack or something. But they are completely used to people. I haven't seen one upset yet, one mapache. They just be cool. And all the locals know this because they walk up and give food to them, like with their hands. And they're apparently not afraid of rabies or anything because everybody does, even kids. There was a little girl and she had crackers and she was with her parents and she was just handing cracker after cracker to these crab-eating raccoons. And the raccoons gently reached out and took the cracker nimbly from the girl's hand and munched it and then reached out and took the next one. Like, they're very dainty and calm little creatures. I went to Casa de Pizza, which I've been wanting to go to ever since I saw it. It's this big round building, and it says they have pizzas and cakes, and there's a bunch of like cake and dessert shops, but there's also a Casa de Pizza, and it's this huge pizza restaurant. And I'm so glad I finally went. I hadn't had pizza in a very long time, and it was good. It tasted like a good pizza, and it was only $4 for a full, like, personal pan pizza. I'll probably go back if I get the hankering again. It had a little too much cheese for me, but, I mean, it was $4, and the sauce was pretty good. There's plenty of toppings. That was the other interesting thing. All the pizzas were under $4, but they were usually like $3 or $3.99. And for $3.50, I could get a mushroom pizza. But for $3.99, I could get a ham, pepperoni, mushroom, olive, onion pizza. And I was like, I'll get the one with everything on it. And they didn't skimp. They had a whole bunch of... It was great. It was a very good pizza. I went into the Super 99 next door and grabbed a couple 50-cent beers and just sat on the doorstep of a closed business like down the street and ate my pizza and had my beers. And I could only eat 2 pieces because there was so much cheese. And I don't eat that much cheese anymore, so with bread especially, it just fills me up pretty quickly. Not like beer, which apparently I can just pour into myself forever. But the Casa de Pizza or Italiano Pizza or whatever they call themselves, good pizza here in Panama City. And just a central, simple place to get. Oh, and it took them 2 minutes to make it. I ordered it, and I waited for a couple minutes, and then my order was ready. Recommend. I also tried Yoi Fried Chicken, which is this Korean fried chicken restaurant I walk by all the time when I go to Machetazo, the new supermarket I like. And I always wanted to try it, but when I walked in, it was just too big. It didn't seem like it was going to be good, frankly. I did take a couple beers with me just in case. Just in case? I mean, I took a couple beers to drink. I don't know why I said just in case. And I ordered the fried chicken, and it didn't look like it did on the picture. It looked like pretty good. Like, if you got this fried chicken from a restaurant, you'd be like, oh, that's good fried chicken. But I like the much crunchier Korean fried chicken, and this was a more bready coating and very thin. Which I don't like thick breading usually unless it's crunchy. Long story. But this wasn't the type of Korean fried chicken I like. Luckily, I had the 2 beers, and the chicken still was good. And the sauce was good enough. I won't be going back there again, but it's nice fried chicken if you like breaded fried chicken. Soft breaded. Oh, when I was walking home in the rain the other day, I walked into a braided steel wire dangling from a power line and kind of got freaked out for a second because it was at like stomach level. It was straight down to the sidewalk. I don't know how dangerous that is or why there are steel wires hanging from power lines sometimes, but that happened. So, crazy racist girl left this place, which is fantastic. The other girl who spends a lot of time being very loud has stopped being loud. She still lives here, but I don't know why she has just, after 2.5 weeks, has decided to stop yelling into her computer 8 hours a day. That's what the crazy girl also did. But this other one, beautiful and Colombian and fairly soft-spoken, talks to her family all the time or something. But anyway, she's quiet also. So I have a lot of free time to record, so much so during the day that I've actually flipped my sleep schedule. I was working through the night, and today's the first day. I just woke up in the morning, 5:30 a.m., and I think I can just be awake during the day and go to sleep at night. And it does feel nicer to sleep at night. I've been making a bunch of noodles with the hot pot base I have, and I cut up these herbs I get from one of the markets here, and I just use the scissors and cut up all the green herbs, and then I cook the garlic cloves in the water I'm boiling for the noodles, and then I put the noodles in, and then I take the noodles out a few minutes later, and then I pour out most of the broth, and then I put in the hot pot sauce. It's so good. So I have greens and garlic cloves and noodles, and then I put some peanuts on top, and then I pour this hot pot red Sichuan mala spicy hot pot base sauce all over it, and oh, it's such a good dinner. I might have ceviche today, though, because it's been a little while since I had it. I did get 3 loud new roommates next door to me. They snore super loud and they play TV all day and at night. But they were only here for a few days, and then they left. So whatever, they're fine. Have you heard about BrainGate 2? It's one of the direct, brain-touching prosthetics, cyborg attachments. It's really cool. It just reads what the patient is trying to do, what muscles they're trying to use, and it extrapolates the words they're trying to say based on the muscles they're trying to use. And it's 99% effective or something, according to the short YouTube video I watched. But I hadn't heard of BrainGate 2 before, and it was really cool to learn about. So there's a way that paralyzed people are talking now, communicating effectively in the world. I also wrote down passive atmospheric water generator because someone made a passive atmospheric water generator, which is super cool. That's a machine that just pulls water from the ambient air. And I read about that on 1440. If you don't read 1440, and especially if you don't like politics very much, it just chooses fact-based articles and compiles them, and you can just read as objective a news list as you can hope for these days. They're very careful to choose objective articles that just talk about what is happening without putting a slant either way on it. Well, I'm getting up to half an hour, so thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.